welcome to the Hello Road podcast. Thanks for joining us. On this show, we talk about unique and forgotten cars, memorable travel destinations, and our most recent automotive adventures and other fun things we enjoy. And this is episode number 7. Lucky number 7?
Number 7.
My name's Ethan.
I'm Paul.
And before we get started, if you've been listening to us and have been enjoying this show, could you do us a huge favor and rate us on iTunes and maybe write a quick review of the podcast? That will help spur the algorithm gods to recommend the podcast to other people. So we would totally appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening. And
Thank you.
What's going on, Paul?
Oh boy, well, kind of a whole bunch of fun stuff to update this week. Let's start back in the weekend. I got to do an oil service on my wife's Honda CR-V and also on my Honda Fit. So that was fun. I enjoy wrenching. And so even something as simple and mundane as a oil change is fun to me. So, but it was ticked up an extra notch this oil change service because I also had to do the spark plug service on my wife's CR-V.
Okay.
It has 102,000 miles on it, and
not that much.
I figured it's probably time to change the spark plugs out. So got those and got to take the trip to the auto parts store to get the correct spark plug tool to take them out because they're deep down in that engine.
Yep.
So I was like, in all my years of experience of wrenching, it's taught me, if you can identify that you don't have the right tool, go get the damn thing, or else you're going to be spending 8 hours trying to extract the spark plugs with a pair of needle nose pliers
or try to get a socket that's just stuck down in the hole there.
Right. And then the head's coming off, and it just a big huge thing. So I identified that pretty quickly and hopped in the car and went and got that little socket. So that's good. So I bought a $12 tool that I'm gonna probably need one more time.
I'll find another use for it.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. So that was pretty cool. It was interesting doing the oil change on the Honda Fit. It compared to the CR-V, because the CR-V it has a little access panel underneath the very large engine splash shield that you very conveniently take off, and right there is your drain plug and your filter. I was like, okay, gonna be the same thing on the Fit. It's not.
Okay.
It is. The whole entire undershield comes off. It's a total of 8 screws, and it's like
the actual screws, not like plastic clips.
Well, it's kind of, they're actual screws, but it's even worse because they're into those little speed nut things, so that eventually over time just fall off.
Yeah.
So it should be a good time in the future. But no, other than that, it went fine. So that's all done. And so that was the fun car stuff.
Get some basic maintenance going on your daily drivers.
Yeah. You gotta keep them up.
I don't do I should.
Yeah, no, it's just peace of mind. My wife wants to keep that CR-V for another couple years, so and it's a Honda, so it theoretically should live. So I still got to do the belt and the tensioner on it, but I'll save that for another weekend when I have some more time. So I got those parts; they're waiting to go on. So yeah.
Okay.
So it was the car stuff I did this weekend.
Yeah, you got some Daihatsu news, or what's going on with the charade?
I do. So when I originally got the car back in 2015, when it had to go through its safety check thing from the CarMax that I had bought it from, they had told me that the front suspension was basically kind of in desperate need of getting rebuilt. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to that.
Okay.
So we're going to fast forward to present day.
Yes.
And I bought the parts to rebuild the front suspension. So it was an easy decision because, as far as I can tell, at least in the United States, and I mean, I'm a parts guy by trade, so I'm pretty in tune of where to get parts from. In the United States, for this particular car, AutoZone, of all places, is the only place that sells the control arms. So they actually have a offer going on right now where you plug in a code and you get 20% off your order if it's over $100.
Right.
So 2 control arms, 2 tie rod ends, and 2 inner tie rods, and we should be good to go. The big thing with it is kind of the reason why I've been holding off autocrossing the car and wanting to do that was because of the wheel and tire situation, which
Yeah.
I also figured
Oh,
out.
really?
And
Oh,
I
oh,
did.
cool.
I
I'm
did.
looking. All
I
right.
have a theory. I have a very, very interesting theory that we'll see if it works. It should.
Okay.
Um,
And it doesn't
but
involve like cutting the fenders and putting a huge like 17 on it. Okay.
no. That's the thing that my favorite part of the car. One of them is that the rear little side skirt thing that, or not side skirt, but fender skirt that's
Sure.
there. It's the bane of the existence on the car because it makes it an absolute nightmare to find wheels that'll fit it
Yeah.
without rubbing. But at the same time, I think I've got it figured
Okay.
out. So
All right.
so we should be good. So yeah, so new suspension will go in. That'll just be the control arms and stuff. I can finally get the thing aligned, and then I've already got the wheels, and I just need to locate a set of tires in the size that I've determined will work, and we should be good to go.
Okay.
It should be autocross time.
And all right. And these
So
are refresh my memory. This 13-inch wheels that are
so
stock.
yes,
Okay.
that are stock or
Yep.
13s. 155 80 13 is the tire
And is that even like
size.
where do you find those? Do they even sell those anymore?
They do.
Okay.
I actually bought those tires on eBay, and
Okay.
They're actually Toyo tires
Yeah.
that were made in Japan. So they're really nice tires. It was like $150 for all 4 of them.
Wow.
But yeah, it was super cheap. That was actually the same tire that was on the car when I had gotten it, the Toyo Extensa.
Okay.
I don't know, whatever it was. It's just some crappy all seasons. But I don't know if I want to use the word crappy and all seasons because my idea I have is to get crappy all season tires in the
Okay.
size for the 14-inch race
Ooh.
wheels because I have this thought that if you were to put super sticky tires on the car that only has 53 horsepower, I don't know if it's going to be able to fully utilize the potential of the tire.
Yeah. Yep.
So, well, why don't I just throw some crappy all seasons on it, beat the hell out of them, and they're super cheap and disposable.
Yep.
So, might be fun.
Yeah. I mean,
So
150
that's
for a
a
set. That's insane. I don't know if you can still get it for that price. Um,
yeah,
wow. I
probably.
mean, for
So
one tire for our Lemons car is like 120. So that's that's just one
right,
tire. Yeah.
there the tire size I was going to go to that I'm planning to go to in the 14-inch size. They actually do sell the Dunlop DZ
Dureza.
threes, Dureza
That's what we were
threes.
talking about. Yeah.
Great tire, but it's $148 a
Yeah.
piece. And I'm like, oh, well, 4 of those tires almost equals what I paid for the charade. So,
Yeah.
so yeah,
That's crazy.
I'm really excited about all that. So that's going to be parts should be here early next week. So probably within the next couple weekends, get some time scheduled in with the family to get out there and do some suspension install
Yeah.
on the charade and then get it aligned and get the tires on it. And I think it's time we go and hit the autocross course.
Yeah. Totally.
It'll
I'll
be
be there. I wanna see this little Daihatsu rip it up around those cones.
you're
Yep.
gonna be driving it too.
Okay.
So
All right. That's good. Because I don't
it'll
think
be
I
good.
have any. All my cars are too broken to autocross, so I won't be bringing
Yeah,
mine out.
we'll see what breaks on it when we
Okay.
autocross it.
Yep.
So yeah, lots of stuff with me. But what about you? What's going on with you?
Still have the problem of too many vehicles. However, this
Hmm.
week I'm down to 11 because the 1987 Chrysler Fifth Avenue is now gone. You know this, but listeners don't know this. It was. I've been trying to sell it for almost 6 months, and I really, really thought that this was going to be a car that I was going to be able to find, the perfect buyer that's into these old Malays. It's not a land yacht; it's a smaller car by land yacht standards, but it's a big kind of boat. I thought I would be able to find somebody, and trying to sell it for 6 months, nobody was really that interested in it, and
Hmm.
I'm not really sure why. I had really good pictures in my ad. I posted it everywhere. I made a video about this on the YouTube channel. So if you want to check out the whole saga, you can go check that out. But I was just surprised. I started off at $3,500 and slowly lowered the price over the course of 6 months just because I wanted to get it out of here. And I also didn't want to price it too low initially because I thought maybe people would think, oh, yeah, it's just a piece of garbage.
Right.
Um, so, yeah, eventually the last week I had it up for sale, I think I had it for $500. And I just gave up. In the whole time that I had it for sale, I had one guy come take a look at it, and he was a cop in the '80s, and he used to drive a Grand Fury or something, and he
Uh-huh.
totally wanted an M body, but it was really kind of a car for his son, and his son came along for the test drive, and he just was not into it. He's like, "What's this grandpa car? I don't want anything to do with this." But the dad was so into it, um, so he didn't buy it, and that's when it was 3,500. I had more people interested when it was higher priced.
Huh.
Yeah, and then eventually, I had a lot of people interested when it was 1,500, but they were all just flakes. They would say, "Oh,
Right.
I would want to totally buy this," and nobody would write back, or a bunch of spam on Facebook Marketplace. Or I had people I had a guy in Florida. I'll give you $500 if you ship it to me. I'm like, yeah, I would lose money doing that. So, so it's like it was just there were people. It's just an old car that's not worth anything. It's kind
Hmm.
of neat, and it looks unique, and it's got great seats, and it's a lot of good attributes about this vehicle. But it's just, I think the people that have cars like this already have their projects, and they don't want another one.
Right. Right.
So, but so what I ended up just donating it, and I felt bad because I thought, there's a chance that this car is just going to get scrapped. I mean, it's a pretty high chance because it started to exhibit a little bit of a rod knock, I think. But at that point, I wasn't really too interested in diagnosing it. Um,
Sure.
so I figured, well, they're going to get this and just scrap it. But it sounds like it's probably going to get saved, I think. So we'll see. If we see it, I keep checking the local scrap yards to make sure that it doesn't get scrapped because I don't feel really bad. But
Right.
and I posted it all over the U.S. I posted on Facebook. I posted on Craigslist forums, every place I could possibly think of, and nobody was interested. So I don't feel
Wow.
that bad because I gave everybody a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, you tried your damnedest on this
I
thing. I mean,
did.
posted all over the country, and nobody wanted it. And like I think I mentioned to you, I think it would be a good candidate to make into a donk or something like that.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to donk this thing out. I mean, it would have been pretty bitchin' as a donk.
Yeah, well, I
So
guess the thing is, I just felt like it was in nice enough condition, like the physical condition, that I'd be able to find somebody on like the Malays Motors Facebook group, or
sure.
even Radwood maybe Facebook group. It's a little, maybe not quite that core audience, but there's a bunch of Facebook groups like that, and a lot of people were interested, but just nobody wanted to buy it. So yeah, that car is gonzo. Yeah.
Well, one down,
One down,
and
so I'm down to 11. Trying to
mhm,
get down to 8. Uh, the next one up is the E46, the 2003 330 Ci, which is a
mhm.
low mile by the standards of that year. It's got 99,000 miles on it. It's an automatic, which is not great, but I bought it just because it was such a great deal from a coworker. Like I couldn't pass it up. I had to just have a E46 for a few months.
Sure.
Um, and had a recently I put a bunch of money into it, but recently I was out like trying to get some photos of this thing because I actually got accepted to be on Bring a Trailer. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've,
Oh,
I've never
cool.
sold a car on Bring a Trailer before, so I want to make sure that I get really good pictures of this thing, and try to
Yeah.
try to detail. You see good auctions there; they're always the ones that detail the problems with the car very well. So because a lot of these people are just buying them sight unseen, not even getting inspections. So I want to try to make sure I do right by whoever buys this.
Right. Right.
So trying to get some really good photos, and then as I'm driving home from work, I look back and I'm like, what is that sound? What is that thing in the road? And I didn't really think of anything of it. And then I got home and I looked at the back of the car and realized, oh, I'm totally missing a taillight. So
Oh,
I
okay.
brought my camera with me and I was ready to go. I was gonna go find a nice spot, like up on the mountain a little bit, and get some nice cool angles and shoot the interior really nice. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm missing a taillight now, so I can't exactly take really good photos of this thing. Uh, yeah, that sucked.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but
It's
and
trying to tell you something. It's saying, "Don't sell me."
don't sell me.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and the other funny thing is, on the way home, also kind of simultaneous with all this stuff happening, one of the xenon lights in the front went out, and a turn signal light went out.
Oh
Everybody
boy.
must have just assumed I was just the typical BMW driver not using my turn signal, but it was actually just the bulb was out for real. It wasn't just me being a typical BMW idiot.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Oh boy.
yeah.
Okay.
So
So
that happened, and I don't drive this car very often. This all happened within like I haven't driven the car in 2 weeks, and just within one day of driving, I have like three failures
oh
immediately.
boy.
So good luck to
So
that new owner.
yeah. Yeah, good luck to the new owner. Bring a trailer. Yeah, it's going to be on there soon.
Yeah, exactly. Oh
Um
wait, I'm not really selling this car very well, am I?
well,
Yeah, but it's like I'm just glad it was just like little things. But it was
yeah,
I've never had a taillight fall off a car before.
that's odd. And that's so weird that that would happen. I can only think it must have like delaminated from like
Yeah.
where they fuse like the colored portion of the lens to the actual like backing.
Yep.
That's I mean, that was kind of a thing when I had my E46 that happened to the turn signal lens. It was all full of water, and it was because they had kind of the seal had kind of
Ah.
delaminated and let water in. So maybe
Yep.
this one it just dry rotted out, and that was that. Well,
Yep.
the good news is the cars are very plentiful, and it's probably not going to be too difficult to get your hands on a replacement lens.
Yeah. I
The
found.
xenon
Yeah.
the xenon bulbs used to be very, very expensive, but I believe they've gotten a there's still a lot of money for a light bulb, but they're a bit more reasonable now.
Yeah.
But
So I
uh,
I just was on Amazon, and I was looking on Amazon and eBay right before we started recording this, and it seems like there's some pretty decent quality ones for about $12 each, I believe. Um,
for the tail light,
no, no, for the
for the
Xenon.
xenon bulb, wow, that's lower than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I guess I don't really know. You kind of look at the reviews and kind of see how many people have purchased this, and
Yeah,
so I'm gonna try the $12 ones and see how they work.
yeah,
But the taillight lens, you're right. I guess they range anywhere from 50 to like 300 depending on who you're buying it from.
right,
Um,
right.
yeah, and I think I found a nice reproduction set because I want to replace both of them because I don't know if they're going to be slightly different
Right.
for $50 for both. So
There you go.
they may be terrible, but I'm going to get them and see what they look like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'll be good enough for the pictures and good enough to work, and the new owner can decide if they want to go out and spend $600 on OEM BMW
sure.
ones to,
Yeah, and
you know,
I'll include the old ones with the with the car. But just judging from the pictures, they look identical. They're not like the crappy ones with all the stupid looking LEDs in them.
right, right.
Yeah,
Well, cool.
yeah.
So you said eight. So we have that's the Chrysler, the BMW, and well, the how is the contest going for the 7 Series?
Oh, for the 7 Series, that's the other one that I'm trying to get rid of. Yep. Anybody that wants an E38 that's kind of working mostly, you can submit a video to tell me why you want my E38.
Mhm.
It's gone pretty well. We got a handful of entries. I think maybe 10. I wasn't expecting a ton because
Okay.
it is a project, and my channel is kind of small. So if you want to win an E38, uh, the odds are pretty high just because there's not that many people that have entered. So yeah, it's a 97 740 IL with 212,000 miles on it. It's been one of the more reliable cars in my terrible car fleet. So yeah, enter to win.
There you go.
Yep.
Well, cool,
Yep.
cool. So let me see. I'm counting. So we have so
Yep.
there's one more.
Yes. So the other one
What's
is
the other one you're getting rid of?
the other one is my stupid truck, my F-250. It's a 7.3 liter diesel. I don't drive it enough. It's ugly because the previous owner cut the fenders and the bed like with these big wheel openings, and then put these really cheap looking plastic fender flares over where he cut, and then didn't. I mean, I guess that would look fine if you had like huge monster truck tires on this thing, or like military size tires or something.
Yeah.
I think I've got 35s on it, and it doesn't really fill the wheel well. And these are like
Yeah.
huge 35-inch tires, and it's like I wasn't gonna go any bigger than that because the expense of it is just ridiculous. So
Yeah.
I have no idea why I bought. I mean, I bought the truck because it was such a good deal for a 7.3 liter diesel, which is a great motor.
Mm-hmm.
But it was sort of like I was sort of weighing the pros and cons of having a lift kit and having these stupid fender cutouts. And in retrospect, I wish I would have waited for a different truck that didn't look so cut up and stupid. So
Right.
I think
And this
somebody
was
out there might like it, but just not me.
yeah. And this was bought to tow the race car.
Yeah, this was bought to tow the Lemon's car, and we haven't raced as much as we would like to. So the truck sits a lot. I'll do like we have landscaping stuff we want to do in a yard or something. I'll go to like Lowe's and get some mulch or some rocks or something like that. But other than that, it kind of sits. So it feels kind of dumb to have that kind of money just sitting there. The truck is probably worth more than what I paid for, just because the value of 7.3 liter diesel vehicles, at least trucks, seems to be going up. I saw one listed. Nobody's going to buy this one, but I saw one listed on Craigslist for it was a 1999 or a 2000 with a 7.3. Had a manual transmission, which is pretty rare. They're asking $28,000 for that truck.
Oh my gosh!
I know. It's crazy.
I was not expecting that number. Wow.
Well, when you search for, and when you search for 7.3 liter diesel F250s or F350s, that was like from 99, I think, to like 2002 or 2003. At least the average asking price or median asking price seems to be around 15 or 16.
Okay.
So who knows? I might be able to make a few. But I mean, I put a lot of work into it, but I might be able to not lose any money on this vehicle.
Sure.
I hope. Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yep.
Well, that would definitely thin down the fleet.
I got to do it. I just want to let anybody that has more than a handful of cars don't overdo it. It's a bad thing. It's not good for your mental health. Your loved ones will get mad at you. Your neighbors will start to hate you, and you won't have enough battery tenders to keep all your cars happy. All the tires will go flat. It's just I bought a lot of them to make videos with, but even just trying to like drive them all, it's impossible. So it's kind of a dumb thing to do. But,
well, I mean, there is that way to look at it, or the way that, like, I look at it. It's like, wow, look at this. This is an amazing collection of cars. I love each and every one of them. But the cool thing about getting rid of some, I mean, it's thinning down your fleet, but it also gives you some more space to get some more, Ethan.
Yeah, that's probably going to happen. Well, I guess the thing is, like with the Fifth Avenue, I didn't love that car. I wouldn't even say I liked it. I liked aspects of it. I like the seats. I like I like the look, but I'm kind of more into smaller, sportier Japanese cars. That's kind of like what I'm really into. Yeah. So a big boat was kind of more just a silly purchase, So I'm going to hope to try not to do as many like joke car purchases as I have done in the past, or at least I got to try to have a plan to get these out of my hair quickly after I buy them.
Right.
Yeah.
Or call up Turo and see what's out there and use one of their fine cars. Yeah. So, or somebody's fine car from Turo.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, that's kind of interesting that we're, talking about all those cars going away.
Yep.
Because the topic today, we're going to talk about the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 that got away from us. So, yeah, I mean, do you think, looking back on this, getting rid of these 4 cars, in 5 years' time, you're going to kick yourself in the ass because the Fifth Avenues are now like the thing and they're going for, Porsche 911 money now?
Oh, man. That will never happen.
The Fifth Avenue bubble.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think that'll happen. Yeah, you're right. But still, that kind of segues pretty well into the one that got away.
Sure.
So, you want to start this, or do you want me?
Yeah, I could kick it off.
Kick it off.
Yeah. So I definitely. It's hard to tell. When you get rid of vehicles, Yeah, that's good. Actually, you're opening a beer. I'm going to probably do that real quick.
Yeah.
There we go. All right.
All right.
Get
Let's
it.
do this.
Yeah, stretch out a little bit. All right. So, we talk about like getting rid of vehicles. I don't think there's many vehicles like at the time when I've gotten rid of them, I've thought, oh, I'm going to totally regret this. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like for me, at least, it's the passage of time is what kind of has made me think fondly of some of my older vehicles. It wasn't, it took some time and to think about the memories that I had with those
Mhm.
vehicles. So I guess right now I could say I probably would never miss the Fifth Avenue, but I don't know. I had a lot of interesting, cool experiences with that car.
Mhm.
So I found cocaine in it.
Yes.
I had a drug dog come over and search it for more, and I drove it to the first Radwood that I went to. And so, like, probably today I wouldn't have that feeling, but let a little time pass, let a little nostalgia build up, and maybe that'll happen. But for me, I guess there's probably more than one that got away, but the one that sort of sticks in my mind is the 1991 Geo Prism GSI that I owned in the late 90s. So I was 19, and in the late 90s, that was kind of like import tuner scene was
Yeah.
kind of getting all heated up. And my friend had a 88 CRX SI. It was a red CRX SI.
Nice.
And at that time I was still just puttering around in my stupid little 87 Tercel, which it was a great car, but it was so slow. And some of my friends were getting kind of faster, sportier cars, and I sort of felt left behind. So my family often bought cars from this local car dealer, and so I asked them, it's like, can you find a Geo Prism GSI, because I had read about it in some car magazines at the time, and they found one at auction, and then I bought it from them. And at the time, it was the nicest car I'd ever had. It had sunroof, power windows, power mirrors. Like, had a great stereo. I mean, this was all in a Geo,
In a Geo, yeah.
Yeah, and I had the Tercel had manual, hard to crank up windows. It had one mirror. It had a 4-speed manual, a 12 valve 4-cylinder motor, which was so slow, and
Mhm.
power nothing, no power steering, nothing. So this was like a luxury car to me. So I was pretty excited about that. And the GSI model, for those that aren't well versed in geoprisms, which is there's probably like 4 people that are like prism experts. I'm not an expert, but I had 2 of these cars. So the
You're an expert at this point after two
I
of
guess
them.
so. So the GSI had 130 horsepower 4AGE motor, which is about 30 more horsepower than that was in the base model and the LSI model. And it came with a cool red stripe, had GSI badges, sport suspension, disc brakes, upgraded wheels, and then it had a 5-speed manual. And we spent a ton of time just driving around the back roads of Western Massachusetts, and it was it wasn't, it's not a sports car, but it was pretty fast, and for a kid, and it seemed
Yeah.
like it handled pretty well. And it was kind of a sleeper because it was a Geo,
Right.
because nobody would ever expect, like, what's this Geo? That's kind of quick. And it was also just kind of neat to drive this car, even back then, that I knew that nobody knew what it was. You
Right.
know, Plus, it was the
So
hatchback. Like, you rarely saw the Prism hatchbacks anyway. Like, to see one with a spoiler and, like,
right.
you know,
So a question about this car. So
yeah,
a lot of 4AG in it. So, and I know Toyota and I guess Chevrolet or Geo obviously had a lot of ties during the 1980s and the 1990s. So, eh, what's some? I want to know more about this because
sure,
I am not a Prism expert. I just know of the tie up between GM and Toyota in the 1980s and 90s.
sure.
So what's up with this?
So yeah, we could talk a little bit about, like, you can maybe back up a little bit. So why did Geo even exist? So um, if you remember, in the 80s, GM small cars really weren't that great. You had the Citation, and
The Chevette.
yeah, they weren't really very well built cars. So I think, in sort of a effort to try to compete with the influx of all these small, reliable import cars coming out of Japan, instead of designing and developing their own. They just wanted to, okay, let's slap some emblems on some Toyotas. So and they did that with Geo Tracker, which was the Suzuki
Sidekick.
Thank you.
There we go.
And then the Geostorm was essentially in a Suzu Impulse. Thank you.
Okay.
And like they actually, some of them sold pretty well. The Prism sold pretty well. I guess we could talk about the Numi plant. So right around the time that all this was happening, GM had their Fremont plant in California, which was one of their worst performing plants. There was just, people would show up drunk. I mean, the cars were just poorly built. There was all sorts of problems with this factory. They basically brought Toyota in to kind of set up how the factory should run. And it was with all of the same workers, or at least many of the same workers. The partnership between GM and Toyota then started to produce Prisms. They produced the Chevy Novas. Actually, I think the Nova might have been one of the first or the first car that they built there. But they built all sorts of stuff. Pontiac Vibes, Toyota Matrix. I think they may even built some Tacomas there. A big long list of cars they built there. And it was a great partnership because it allowed GM to start selling some pretty reliable vehicles, and it allowed Toyota to kind of find their way into the U.S. market. It's a little bit more complicated than that. There's a really good NPR. Is it This American Life? I think maybe had a good episode about this. I'm sort of giving the shitty Cliff Notes version. But anyway, yeah, this was a Numi car. The Prism GSI was a Numi car, and it was a pretty fun little beast.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely sounds like one of those the sleepers, because it's got the legendary 4AG, the same basic engine that was in the Corollas, the AE86, and Toyota MR2s.
Yep. And this is the red top version. I don't know much about the history of 4AGs, but for people that do, this was apparently the red top version.
So that was a later engine. I don't know much about 4AGs, but I do know that was a later one. So that would be equivalent to like Toyota sold the front wheel drive Corolla GTS. Yep. It had the pop-up headlight still, and it had the different 4AG in it. Okay, so this is basically stablemates with that, except for like with a Geo badge on it, basically.
Yes, this is a AE92 platform.
Okay.
And it's let's see. So it's technically it's probably has more in common with the Toyota Sprinter than it does in terms of like the shape. I mean, it was pretty similar. There's a Corolla Sierra, I think, in the Toyota Sprinter. They all kind of look the same. But it's not exactly like the U.S. market Corolla, because they actually never sold the hatchback version of this generation Corolla in the U.S.
Okay.
So of the AE92. So
unless you wanted a Geo version, and then there you go.
Unless you wanted the Geo version, for sure.
Okay, cool.
Exactly. But it's I guess in terms of reason why probably nobody knows about this car, or very few people know about this car, is because way after I owned this vehicle, I learned how rare it was. In 1991, they made 237 GSI hatchbacks. That's it.
Whoa!
So they made quite a few more sedans, but for the hatchbacks, only 237. So that's more rare than like a 69 Shelby Mustang GT500. It's more rare than a 53 Chevy Corvette. Those cars are like, the Vet's like $200,000 at auction. This car is probably worth $1,000.
Wow, that's a very, very low production number.
Yes, it's one of the rarest cars that So basically, what happened is I had this car for a year when I was 19, and then I was like, oh, you know what? I sort of have to think about how I'm going to afford college and have a car payment, because this was the first car payment that I had, and it probably wasn't even that much. It was probably like 60 or 70 bucks a month or something.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, but to me at the time it was a ton of money. So I just had to weigh. I had this really fun car. It was great to like have a car that sort of like competed with my friends' cool imports. And but I I want to go to college, and I'm not going to be able to afford both, and I don't really want to have the car down there and have to pay for insurance while I'm trying to go to school. So I decided I gotta sell this thing. So I sold it to my sister's now ex-boyfriend, and he drove it around for a bunch of years. And who knows? It's probably long gone. I can't imagine that this car is still around.
Right.
They were just regular cars, even though they only made 237. I didn't know they only made 237 back then, and it was just a cool little sporty commuter. And I don't think anybody would back then would have thought, oh, I need to save this for one day. This might be worth something, because it's not going to be worth anything. But so that I got rid of it, and I guess it took maybe 10, 15 years after that to sort of wonder about, like, oh, that was actually a pretty cool car. I had a lot of fun in that car. And why don't you see these anymore? And I never really started. And then I started to think about the production numbers, and sort of kicking myself. I'm like, oh man, I didn't know what I had. I mean, not in terms of value, but in terms of just like rarity. And
Rarity, yeah.
yeah, to kind of like put a cap on that story. I found another one, a 91 Geo Prism GSI hatchback. So another one of the 237. And I bought it. So I've owned two of the 237 GSI hatchbacks that have been built. So that's like, what is that? I've owned 1% of all 91 GSI hatchbacks.
That's a pretty good statistic right
Yeah.
there. Wow. Yeah, and that's the one that you had done the video when you went to Utah to pick that one up, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
And
Yep.
drove it back.
Yep. Got it in Utah. Drove it back. Drove it for 6 months, and the engine kind of failed. Honestly, I haven't really spent any time figuring out what's going on with it, just because the too many car problem.
Sure.
But it is, and I was sort of just, I guess I also purchased this thing not only to just try to experience it again, but to see if I had some of the same feelings,
Right.
And I kind of didn't.
Really?
It was interesting, and I think part of it is that you can't really go back. An object can't allow you. I mean, in some ways, it can remind you and refresh your memory of things that you did. Fond memories that you might have, but to think that a physical object is going to like sort of magically take you back in time, I didn't think it was going to do that, but I also sort of didn't get the same feeling that I thought I would.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. And it's kind of interesting you say that. Not to throw things too off topic, but like for me, for a good long while, I was collecting a lot of the vintage video games from my generation.
Yeah.
Growing up, Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, those sort of things, and the whole intention was like, I'm gonna feel like I'm in the room I grew up in, on a summer afternoon playing
Sure.
whatever the case may be. I was playing on whatever those systems, and I spent a lot of time it was a ton of fun searching for this stuff and finding it, and oh yeah, I got it. But then it just sat because
Yeah.
there was not really as much of an enjoyment I would get out of it as I thought there would be.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of the same thing in a way. So okay, so you let one get away, but then you went back and got another one.
Yeah.
So well, that's one way to cope with it right there.
Exactly. Well, I think part of it was, when am I ever going to have another chance? Because they only made 237. There's probably maybe 10 left. Who knows?
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what? I'll just. It was $1,000. What Let's just see what it's like.
How did you find this thing? Did you just stumble across it by dumb luck, or was it like you had to search like set up for one of these, or how did this go about?
So this guy named Ray, who also owns a Prism GSI, a white one that was parked next to my Nova Twin Cam at Radwood.
Okay.
He started this website called prismgsi.com.
Oh.
And I had seen it years ago. He might have had the website up for like 10 years. And I probably was just thinking about this car at one point, and I saw the website and was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then, I don't know, somehow he figured out that I used to own one of these, and he alerted me that it was available. So, and it was somebody that he knew. It was a friend of a friend of a friend or something like that. So
Sure.
I felt pretty confident. And it was the owner was also a 24 Hours of Lemons racer and and builder, so I figured I can probably trust this guy. So I was like, yeah, I sent him $1,000 via PayPal, and I picked the car up like a month later when I had a chance to fly out there. Yeah, that's how I found out about it. The magic of the internet.
The magic of the internet, yeah, because I mean that's with such low production numbers, unless you were out there looking for it, or it was like a specialist type of a deal, like that website was, that's the only way you're going to find it. Because it also seems like it would be one of those cars that like somebody doesn't know what they have and they just throw it up as like,
That's
uh,
what most of them are.
yeah, oh,
Yeah,
it's just a Geo Prism, oh, but
but Ray knows all of he can tell you what all of the GSIs that are for sale at any given point.
there you go,
He knows what they all are. So if there's anybody out there that wants a GSI, talk to him. He'll know. He'll be able to tell you.
there you go.
Yep.
He's like the Morgan Freeman's character in Shawshank Redemption. You need a Prism GSI, you tell him
Yes.
and give him a pack of Lucky Strikes, and you'll get it.
Exactly.
Well, that's cool. So it got away from you, but yet you got it back, or got
Sure.
one back. So
Yeah.
this the story comes full circle. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
It's the one that I got, the one that I have now. It's in horrendous shape. It's when I bought it, I knew it was in bad condition. The paint
Mhm.
is completely trashed. The clear coat's completely trashed. The interior is falling apart. The dashboard's cracked, but they're all cracked, so there's no way around that. It was definitely very, very, very tired. But this is a car, even though I said it didn't. It's funny when you think about nostalgia. The word nostalgia kind of its origins are kind of more negative. It was sort of originally kind of positioned as a disease.
Whoa.
So yeah, when you think of nostalgia, initially back then it was like, yeah, you're thinking wistfully, but it's kind of it had negative connotations, and it's since sort of turned around to kind of have these fond memories. But it's sort of funny how that's changed. And even though I didn't have that kind of instant immediate reaction of, oh, this takes me back to when I was 19 driving on the back roads of Western
Hmm.
Massachusetts, I instead of that, I sort of feel like this is a new adventure for me. I'm not trying to use this car to relive the past. You know, that's why I wanted to do this trip from Utah to LA. I wanted to get a car that I could make new memories in and not try to like recreate the old ones. So
Okay.
that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to try to get out of it. So even though this car didn't bring me back to my teenage years, I do still want to try to fix this thing up. I mean, I sort of part of it is I feel like I'm obligated to do it because I'm kind of a Numi fan. I have a Chevy Nova twin cam that I love. That's my favorite car, and I've already owned a Prism GSI. There's very few people that like care about them, so I feel like I'm sort of chosen to. I've been chosen to try to restore this thing. I think I'd feel awful if I just let it sit, which is
L-
what it's been doing. So
Right.
that's
Right.
why I'm trying to get rid of some cars so I can focus a little bit more effort on this vehicle.
That's awesome. I mean, in thinking about the stuff that I somewhat let slip away, it would
Yeah,
how it would come full circle would be interesting, but at the same time, um,
yeah. What's your
y-
story?
well,
What's your
um,
deal, man?
what's my deal? So I had a 2003 Mini Cooper. It was my first new car I ever bought, and I ordered it from the Mini factory or whatever. This is back when the cars were pretty hot.
Yep.
It was very difficult to get one, and the majority of people ordered a lot of their cars. So I had done that, and
Okay.
I had purposely ordered a Cooper versus the Cooper S with the supercharged motor. With the intention that, oh, this is more true to the roots of the Mini, where it's like there's no forced induction and
Uh huh.
all that other stuff. So that was my whole reasoning behind it, and also my love of the slower version of the car and just slow cars in general. So
Sure.
yeah,
Slow car fast.
slow car fast. So um, through owning the Mini, I joined up with a group of we'll say, like-minded Mini enthusiasts who, at the time, uh, we had a forum, a Mini
Mhm.
Cooper forum, and it was kind of the more suited for people that were my age at the time versus some of the other larger forums that were more catered to the people that put the chrome accents on the car and
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. More of the, we're going to take the cars racing, we're going to take them canyon carving and all this other fun stuff. So it was pretty cool. It was a pretty unique group of people. And some of my best friends I have to this day I met because of this forum.
Yeah.
So it was really awesome. So great community. I mean, I loved that car so much, and I quickly realized I was kind of on an island by myself with it because the majority of people that were into modifying these cars had the supercharged model
Yep.
S. So I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I have a Cooper," and they're like, "Oh,
Oh,
well,
boring.
what the hell are you going to do with that?" So um, there was a couple people on the forum that had Coopers and were into modifying them. Um, One of the guys was the one that kind of, well, the story is about. I don't want to use the word heavily tracked, but he definitely tracked his Cooper quite a bit, and did a lot of development on the car to get it to the point where it was a pretty capable track car. And he was just using it for track days, and he was a BMW CCA instructor. But
Okay.
so him and I became pretty good friends. He lived across the country. He lived in, I think, no, Vermont. He was in Vermont, and he had a 2003 Cooper, and he had done like a roll cage in it. He had put a racing seat in it, and
Mhm.
it was slowly turning into like a full race car.
Cool.
He
Yeah.
had some really awesome suspension that was on the car, and I just kind of, I guess you can say, like, really looked up to him as like a sort of inspiration as to what I would like my car to become, or
Sure.
what I was hoping my car would become,
Yeah.
which it didn't end up happening. So, um, one of the things that he had done to his car to make it even to his Cooper to make it even more awesome was he had swapped in a 6-speed manual out of the Cooper S because the Achilles heel of the Cooper was that 5-speed manual transmission.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I lost one transmission on my Cooper. Yeah, it was a there's a long story behind all that, but long story short, the if you were going to do anything serious with your Cooper, like, racing it or heavily autocrossing it, the best thing to do was to get rid
Just
of
get
the
rid of
5
that.
speed and
Okay.
put the 6-speed from a Cooper S in it. It was pretty straightforward to do. Just minimal modifications were really needed because it's the same engine that was in the
Yep.
cars. Just one of them had a supercharger on it,
Got it.
and other stuff, but that's
Yep.
stuff for another day. So I really looked up to the car, and I was like, man, one day I would love my Cooper to get to that point. And years are going by. This is like, going from 2000 and 4, 2005 all the way up to like 2010. So it's a long time. We're all in this mini community together, and it was probably in 2010 he sends me a, a, a private message. Remember those on forums?
Oh, yes.
and
Forums. I
and
don't even
he
remember forums, let alone private messages.
and he sent me a message, and he said, "Hey, um, I'm thinking about unloading the mini." And he goes, "There's only one person that I know that would really appreciate everything that I've put into the car."
Yep. And so
And
you bought it. No.
no, I didn't buy it. It was
Oh.
so difficult. At the time, my wife and we were just married at that point. We were living in an apartment and, not making gobs and gobs of money. So it was really kind of a deal breaker right there to get the car. But I remember it being fairly cheap because it had a good amount of miles on it. And
Okay.
he was like, I think it was something like $5,000 he wanted for the car.
Yep.
And to this day,
Yeah.
I kick myself in the ass for it because I mean, I absolutely loved my Mini. I loved everything about it. And I think I've held every car I've owned since then to that pedestal that my Mini
Hmm.
sat on for me. And this particular Cooper that he had was pretty much the top of the crop when it comes to Coopers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I passed on it. It was very hard for me to say that, but I let it go. And there's every time I see one of those early Minis driving around, especially in the color his was, it was
Uh-huh.
a color called velvet red. So it was that maroonish red, and it
Yep.
was
Not the bright one that you see
n-
often.
yeah, that was mine. Mine was actually that color. That was called
Okay.
chili red. This one was
Okay.
velvet red, and yeah, it was velvet red with a white top, and yeah, it
Nice.
was just an absolutely awesome Cooper. It would have been a ton of fun to own that thing, and you know, just letting it go away, I was like, I don't know, maybe in the future there'll be another chance
Yep.
to to own one, but it kind of happened again with another guy who had a Cooper, and he had actually had a pretty rare modification that was done to it. And he hit me up probably a year or two after that other car came through, and he asked if I wanted to buy it because of the uniqueness of the
Sure.
modification that was done to it. And
Uh-huh.
again, kind of in the same situation, I had to pass on the car, but in looking back at it, it would have been awesome to have, because what it consisted of was this thing called the John Cooper Works tuning kit.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay,
Remember
so
that.
it in the early years of the new generation minis that came out, um, the Cooper was all that existed before the Cooper S came, and it was very quickly realized that the car kind of needed some more power and some more oomph. So the John Cooper Works, the people that basically make the hot rod minis nowadays, they made a kit for the Cooper that consisted of a completely reworked cylinder head, ECU, flashed ECU, full blown catback exhaust, and it had a completely different air box assembly on it. And so all of that bumped the power from 115 to about 132,
Hmm.
which
Yep.
isn't a whole hell of a lot, but it
That's a
was
lot for a small, lightweight
yeah,
vehicle.
it is, considering that the Cooper S was rated at 163 when it came out. I mean, this was kind of putting it within spitting distance of it. So,
Yep.
um, you know, being that I was pretty deep in the mini community and in all of the mini knowledge I had in the day, I was actually able to track down just about how many of those kits actually existed. And
Ah.
it was pretty much less than 300 of them
Oh
worldwide.
wow.
And the majority of those were in Europe, mostly in the UK. There was
Okay.
actually a racing series that they had early on with those Coopers, and they all had the kits put on them.
Ah,
So
I
that,
didn't know that.
yeah, it was
Yep.
the John Cooper Challenge is what it was called. So yeah, so that was another one that was offered up to me because of my Cooperness, and
Yes.
I had to pass that one up. So
Wow.
yeah, so two unique Coopers that unfortunately did not get to find their way to my driveway. So
Sure. Kind of heartbreaking. That was just bad timing.
yeah, it was. I
Yep.
mean, I think if the situation were to present itself today in present time, in kind of having the main shift that I've had towards like the Japanese type of stuff, I don't know. I would probably do
Yeah.
it as long as I knew the history on the car and it had everything the way I wanted it.
Yep.
You know, any of my friends that would be listening to this are going to give me hell for this, but I would own another Cooper again,
Okay.
provided it was set up the correct way. I would definitely do it. I loved the car, so
Yeah.
maybe one day. So
Okay. All
yeah,
right. So
that's
that you had sort of two that got away,
mm-hmm.
both minis.
Both minis.
Interesting.
Yeah, both
Yeah.
minis. More so the first one was kind of the more heart wrenching one, because I kind of saw that car's evolution, whereas the other one was just like a guy that came up onto the forum and he goes, "Oh, look what my mini has," and it was like, "Oh, dude, you know how rare that is, right?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I know," and I'm like, okay, cool. And then a couple months later, hey, you want to buy it? I'm like, yeah,
I do.
I do. But so, yeah, those are my kind of ones that got away. I don't want to, think about my Mini that I owned where it is now. I have its VIN still, and I'm too scared to Google it and see.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
one of those things, and it's kind of the same situation with that other car. It's like I wonder what
It's like
became of
stalking
it.
an ex-girlfriend, like
Right.
looking, like searching the VIN for the old vehicles that you used to own.
Exactly. So yeah, so I'm hesitant to do it. So
Yeah, don't do it.
yeah.
Some, it could be crashed. You don't want to think about that.
Yeah, I don't want to see like a picture of it like as flat as a pancake, like, oh, here's that VIN now. And I'm like, oh man, so many memories in that car.
Yep.
so yeah, I probably won't. I won't. I'll just get it tattooed on the back of my arm or something to remember it that way. So
Yeah.
so yeah, those are mine that got away.
Yep.
So if you own a velvet red Mini Cooper 2002 with a roll cage and a 6-speed, and you want to sell it, let me know.
Sure. And if anybody out there happens to have a 1991 Geo Prism GSI, I'll buy another one. I'll
Yeah,
make it three. Well,
yeah,
2% of the GSIs that were.
2% of it. There you go, and you can
Yeah.
definitely use one as a parts car and stuff, and
Sure.
transfer stuff around.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that's the ones that got away. I'm sure if I thought about it a little bit more, I could probably come up with another one. But we should probably start thinking about our other segment that we were originally calling it car spotting.
Yes.
Can't call it that anymore. And then you had
Nope.
an idea of what to call it.
So the new idea for this segment is rad shit we saw this week.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So what did you see?
well, so today, driving home from work, it wasn't the best, but it was still something you don't see every day. It was actually pretty sad. It was still rad, but it was pretty sad. And it was going on the opposite direction of the freeway. It was on a car carrier,
Okay. Was it a
and
Fifth Avenue,
it was not a
1987
it was
gold?
not a Fifth
Okay.
Avenue. It was
All right.
a black Lamborghini Diablo, which I personally love the
Ah,
Diablo,
yeah.
except the sad part was it looked like it had been in a pretty nasty wreck.
Oh, geez.
And
Even so, it's probably still worth a ton of money.
I think it would still be worth a ton of money, especially like even as a parts car for somebody
Yeah,
to take some
exactly.
stuff out of. But it
That's a
the
bummer.
yeah, the roof of it was like all caved in and stuff, and it had like I don't want to say saran wrap, but like that like plastic wrap kind of all around it to like hold it in place, I guess. And I was like, oh, that's gotta hurt right there, because of Lamborghini's cars, they have a lot of nothing against the Countach and like the Mira or Myra, however you say it, but I mean, I was kind of always a Diablo fan, so when I see
Yeah.
one, I'm like, yeah, that's super bitchin'. I love those things, and seeing one kind of wrecked on a car carrier, with other like some mundane cars, a couple Hyundais and like a Jeep or whatever it was. It was just like wonder where they're going. Are they going to the junkyard? And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, well, then it's like,
Hmm.
maybe somebody will, maybe it is going to the junkyard. Maybe someone will pull that big old monster V12 out of it and go shove it in a Toyota MR2 or something, and
Yes.
it'd be awesome. So yeah, so it was rad and sad at the same time. So
Okay.
yeah, poor Lamborghini.
Oh man, bummer. Well, it's all those parts are going to get reused.
Oh yeah.
So I saw something. It
Ooh.
was in very very nice condition. It was cocaine white, which will maybe give you an indication of the era.
Okay.
Maybe somewhat of an indication of the era. It's the body work is made out of acrylic resin bonded to fiberglass,
Ooh.
and it was built in Canada. I'm
I,
wondering if you could tell me what this is.
Brickland Sv1.
Yes, exactly. Canada gave it away. I should have made it a little bit more difficult.
Um.
Um, yep.
A Brickland SV1.
Yeah. I
Awesome.
was just sitting on the side of a road in the valley, San Fernando Valley. I'm just sitting there looking like a Brickland, 70s wedge shaped,
Yep.
ugly. I do not like the way this car is just ugly. But it was cool, because like you don't see these very often, and
No,
obviously somebody took very, very good care of it. And it's got a unique place in automotive history.
it sure does. Do you know much about the history of that car?
Not a ton. I know a little bit about Malcolm Brickland and
Yes.
kind of crazy that dude was, but
Crazily
yeah,
awesome is what he
yeah.
was. You don't see those cars very often. When you
No,
do, it at least for me, because I mean, I'm familiar with them. I know what they are. I always get off put by how small they are. They're actually really small.
yeah.
Um,
It
it
kind
look
of like reminds me of a Saab Sonnet, that
Yes,
size.
yes, that's a perfect comparison to that. The size wise, it's pretty small. Yeah, the SV1. There's all of my Malcolm Brickland knowledge I have, which is a lot, and it's because there was a book written. Um, Now it's on my bookshelf. I can't go grab it, but there was a book written about the Yugo, and
Yes.
it's an absolutely awesome book, and it kind of goes through about how they came to be in the United States. And he himself, Malcolm Brickland, was responsible for the Yugo in the United States, and also
Yep.
created the Brickland SV1, and also he did something else with a company, getting them to their start in the United States. I forget their name. Starts with an S. I owned one of their cars.
Hmm.
Hmm. So
Ah,
yeah, so he's pretty uh I guess you could say interesting and big player here in the car industry in the United States with Yugo and the
sure.
Brickland and that other company that starts with an S and has all-wheel
Pro-
drive and
and ends with Uberu.
ends with Uberu. So yeah, I mean, really cool book, really cool story. Get to learn way more than you'll ever need to know about the Yugo, the SV1,
Yeah.
and the Subaru 360. So
Yeah.
pretty cool book. So for the Hello Road Podcast Book Club, that's our first
Yes.
reading assignment right there.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'll bring it to
Expect you
you
to read
next
that.
week, so you
Yes.
can
I'm gonna
read
read that whole
it.
book.
So you can read it. So cool, Brickland SV1. Trying to think the last time I saw one, and it's been a good number of years.
The,
So
the last one I saw before that was probably, well, that's not true. I did see one racing in 24 Hours of Lemons. There was one that somebody
really,
brought to a Lemons race. I don't know how long it lasted in the race. I don't think it lasted very long. But yes, there was a Brickland racing in Lemons, at least for one race.
wow,
Yeah.
that would be an interesting sight to see
Yes.
because you know, I mean, isn't it? I mean, that's for the novelty at that point. The
Yes.
car's not gonna. Maybe it's not gonna finish, but and maybe it's only gonna get to do one race because
Yes.
after that, it's like, well, this, and this broke, and yeah, we're not gonna find those parts anymore. So, well, cool.
Yep.
That was a fun one. Yeah, I mean, Bricklin SV1. I was not expecting that. Not
No, I
expecting that.
wasn't either. And when I drove by, I wanted to stop, but I was driving my daughter around. She was napping in the back, and I was like, "Oh, I got to keep the car moving, keep this kid happy." So I didn't stop.
I've
But
I've done that
yeah,
before when I was
yeah,
driving my daughter around. It's like, oh, I gotta stop and check this out. She's asleep real quick. And just
yeah,
roll the window down a little bit and keep the AC on and,
yeah,
go take a look at it. So, well, cool, good stuff.
yeah.
So,
Car spotting slash rat shit we saw this week slash something, whatever we want to call it.
yeah,
Perfect.
we'll change it next
Nice.
week.
Yeah.
Um, Upcoming events. There's something pretty big going on next weekend, and that would
Hmm.
be Radwood Las Vegas.
Yep. We are both going
We are
to
going.
Radwood, Vegas, because being in Los Angeles, it's not far.
No,
We should be able to make that trip.
yeah, it's you know 3.5 4 hour drive unless we stop and take a look at things and
Sure.
do all sorts of things. But other than that, it's a pretty easy drive out there in through the desert and out to Las Vegas. So yeah, that show is on Saturday the 27th. uh,
Mm-hmm.
Schedule hasn't been released, but I did get an email from those crazy kids at Radwood, and I saw something about the show taking place in the evening, first for Radwood, because they want to be able to have all the neon lights of Las Vegas bouncing off the cars and so on and so forth. So it should be interesting. going to take place at I forget the name of the parking lot, but it's one of the parking lots at the Las Vegas Convention Center, which is pretty massive. That's where they hold SEMA every year and various other things, but it's mostly well known for hosting SEMA. And I think CES is out there too. So yeah, I mean it's used for a whole bunch of different things. So yeah, it should be awesome. But not should, it will be awesome. I mean, unless things happen between now and then, Ethan, we will not be showing a car at this show. We will just be showing ourselves and
Yep.
checking out some of the rides that Las Vegas has to show. Should be cool. They actually, if the way Instagram shows me is true, they actually have a pretty decent community of imported JDM cars out there. So we should be able to see some really cool, right-hand drive stuff. Hopefully,
Yes.
that's what I'm hoping for. I've got a couple of cars up in my head. I'm really hoping to see at a Radwood. So I hope that comes true out there. But if not, it's still going to be an awesome show.
For sure.
So yeah, so that's the big one coming up. I'm trying to think, they got some other stuff. They're releasing more stuff for that organization, for Radwood, for more of their events they're doing, and it seems to be every day or every other day they're doing
I know.
something. So
Something. They got a
yeah,
lot of stuff going
they
on.
do. Oh,
Can't keep up.
I can't.
Can't keep up.
Yeah, yeah. It's keeping them busy though, and that's great. So, just this whole community is just absolutely spreading out. So that's cool. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So, so that's the big event we have coming up. Other than that, for event wise, I don't think there's anything else on the exact horizon, but we'll see coming down the line. So yeah, I think we can call that a podcast at this point. We want to see where people can find you at.
Sure. YouTube.com/Hello Road. Facebook group. It's
Yes, Facebook
called
group.
Hello Road Adventures in Unique Cars. There's a cool little group going over there if you want to talk about your unique vehicles and road trips and stuff you've been taking with it. Please join us over there. Also, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Mr. Ethan Tufts. And what about you, Paul?
For me, for Instagram, you could find me at charade_life. That's where I'm at. And yeah, if we want my Twitter handle, it's Slow Paul. I typically just like to like other people's tweets.
Nice.
Yeah,
awesome.
It works. except for last night when I went on a rant about the New York International Auto Show, but that's a different story.
Okay.
Yeah. So either or. Well, cool. Good stuff.
All right.
We'll see y'all next time. Thank you very much for listening. And like Ethan said at the top of the show, make sure you on iTunes give us a review.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate that.
That would be awesome.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.